Hello, I'm Emma-Louise Coffey and you're welcome to the Dairy Edge, the Teagasc Dairy podcast. We're bringing you the latest information, insights and opinion to improve dairy farm performance. For Animal Health Awareness Week, Department of Agriculture vet Michael Horan joins us to give insight into the importance of surveillance and early detection of disease in animals from an animal health, human health and trading and marketing perspective of Irish products. And first, Michael explains the purpose of the Animal Health Awareness Working Group to maintain high health and welfare standards across Irish dairy farms.
So, Emma-Louise, we do have some reasons to believe in recent years that maybe the risk of some of these exotic diseases coming in is a little bit higher than it was. And there's a number of reasons for that, which are the globalization, which was kind of increasing every year. There's greater movement of products, people and animals between countries, which carries the risk of transmitting disease with it. And then the idea of climate change, like we've had diseases like blue tongue emerging in the Netherlands there in 2006. It emerged in a location which was further north than it had ever occurred before. So we were concerned about this, and we did set up this early warning surveillance working group within the department. And essentially we were looking at whether our systems for detecting exotic diseases and new diseases, if those should occur, were up to scratch. And what we found really were that our main systems of detecting these diseases, they really depend on good farmer awareness and good awareness among vets. And therefore, we realized quite quickly that if there was a weakness in our systems, it was that when a bit of time elapses since the last major incursion of an exotic disease, awareness tends to slip a bit. And if we can keep the awareness high, we have a much better chance of detecting these diseases at an earlier stage. So therefore, that's where the idea for the Animal Health Awareness Week came from.
And when we talk about disease, can you give us an example of an occasion where disease detection didn't work as well as it might have or maybe should have, and it led to, I guess, a widespread crisis from an animal health perspective?
I do have a couple of examples of these. So there was foot and mouth in 2001 in the UK, and in that case the outbreak cost the UK government billions of euro. It spread not just throughout the UK, it spread into other countries in Europe as well. And of course, the outbreak disrupted our lives quite a lot. As farmers weren't able to continue with what they do on a normal basis. And even members of the public found that sporting events were cancelled and races were cancelled, Cuilta forests were closed, and things like that. We were sort of in a way in a better position in this country. Foot and mouth disease did come in here, but by the time it came in here, we were on the alert because of what was happening in the UK. And the outbreak cost 210 million in this country. But the authors of a cost report into the episode found that if there had been a widespread outbreak, it would have cost between 1 billion and 5.6 billion. So I suppose then some of the features of the outbreak in the UK, they found it was caused by feeding illegally imported meat to pigs. And there's a number of things there, I suppose. I suppose the person who imported the meat illegally probably didn't intend to cause a massive outbreak of disease in livestock. The person who fed the meat to pigs in probably kitchen scraps or something like that, or catering waste, probably didn't intend to cause a major disaster. And the people who failed to detect the disease early enough probably didn't intend to cause a major disaster. But that's why we need to be aware. We need to be ready to act in order to prevent disease in the first place. But if it does come in, to be on the ball and to get it early so that it doesn't spread throughout our whole animal population. And there is another example, Emma-Louise, I could talk about there, BSE, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So BSE then, it was first described in 1987. There was a particular farm where there were a number of cows displaying unusual signs, and that's how it was detected, really, through the perseverance of the vet who sent carcasses to his local, what we would call regional veterinary lab, I suppose. But the point about it is that UK beef was a premium product up until 1995, and they had a thriving export trade. They had 650 million pounds sterling worth of exports of beef in 1995. And then all of a sudden in 1996, due to BSE, the exports of UK beef were banned. But it was interesting to hear what this man, Mr. Richard Sibley, submitted to the inquiry into the crisis, which was it's called the Phillips inquiry, and they decided to hold this inquiry when the dust settled a little bit to see what went wrong and what they could learn. And what he submitted really was that the surveillance of non-notifiable diseases was limited by variations in reporting, investigation, and consultation between farmers and between vets. So in other words, really the detection of diseases, such as new diseases, or even exotic diseases, which farmers and vets can't exactly pinpoint which one they are. It just depends on farmers and vets getting to the bottom of animal health issues in their farm and bringing in a lab to look into what exactly is going on here. And when they look back on the BSE episode, they found that lots of anecdotal evidence of vets saying, well, we've seen cows like this since the late 1970s. It was just in this particular farm where the farmer and the vet really got to the bottom of the problem.
And I guess that's what you're talking about, Michael, when you say identifying these diseases quickly. So essentially, BSE existed for 10 years before it was identified in the UK. I guess if you can enlighten us in terms of the consequences of that BSE outbreak for the UK.
There is a suspicion that it could have been around for up to 8 to 10 years before it was actually described in the veterinary record. So of course, there was, it caused massive upheaval, that BSE outbreak did. I've already spoken about the loss of the export market, which of course massively impacted on the value of livestock. It affected the livelihoods of farmers. And then of course there was the public health consequences for those people unfortunate enough to develop new variant CJD from consuming contaminated beef products. It's heartbreaking to read the accounts of what that caused. For the UK Exchequer, they incurred 3.7 billion in direct costs due to BSE up till the year 2002. So, it's just the consequences of something like this becoming established in our animal population are just unthinkable. They're just phenomenal.
And a few things that I want to pick up with you on that, Michael. And I suppose the first thing is there's you mentioned it, the consequences for the Exchequer and the consequences for farmers. And I guess we can take a lot from what you're saying. There's a lot of similarities with us. We export a lot of our dairy meat products, so we need to have those really high standards. And I guess, what is the department's role in maintaining those standards, and I guess Ireland's product in terms of trading?
Yeah, so that's a really good point, Emma-Louise. So I suppose when we think about, or certainly when I was a vet in practice, or even as a farmer son growing up, and I was thinking about foot and mouth, well, what would foot and mouth do to the country? Well, I'm always thinking about the most visible signs, which is the cattle being depopulated and disposed of by, well, we could see the pictures from the UK of cattle being burned on pyres and this kind of thing going on. But the trade element is much more serious, because as soon as you get, a lot of our products are sold on the basis of certificates. Veterinary health certificates are what accompany our agri-food products going into other countries. And we've heard quite a bit about these due to Brexit. So a lot of these certs just say the foot and mouth is absent from the country. So the minute you get a foot and mouth or another disease like that, which the cert says is absent, if you know what I mean, well, then all of a sudden your certs can't be signed, and you have a big problem in selling our dairy and our beef products, and of course other products as well. And you know, this, while the costs we've spoken about, the depopulation of animals and compensation costs for farmers, like they are, like, I'm not trying to make light of them, they're very, very substantial, but the trade costs could probably be bigger depending on the size of the outbreak. And of course, you don't just get your freedom back the minute you get the last case, because you have to demonstrate then that your country is free. That can take several months. But I wouldn't mind going through maybe a cert to China there, Emma-Louise, because there's a lot of diseases which the Chinese are interested in, which maybe don't take up much of the average farmer's attention on a daily basis. So like the Chinese want us to confirm that Ireland is free from foot and mouth, rinderpest, contagious bovine pleuropneumonia, lumpy skin disease, and peste petit ruminant. They have BSE measures that they want to have fulfilled. They want animals to be have a unique identification which can be traced back to the the farm of birth. And then they want to originate from farms where there's no clinical cases of blue tongue, brucellosis, anthrax, Augeski's, paratuberculosis, vesicular stomatitis, Q fever, leishmaniasis, heart water, infectious bovine rhinotracheitis, bovine genital campylobacteriosis, and bovine viral diarrhea. So some of those are familiar and some of them are not so familiar. But I suppose the point I'm making here is that the department as a whole has a whole set of tasks in the animal health area, which it has to accomplish every year. So that where farmers and vets, I think, deserve great credit for doing their stuff in the field every day and every week. They do deliver good animal health and good animal welfare, and they deserve credit for that. But the department has its role to play as well. And just a few things the department does. Like we have a National Disease Control Centre, which consists of a team of vets and support workers who work continually in seeking to prevent these diseases coming in and in being prepared to get on top of them and stamp them out quickly if they do. We do have a laboratory service, the regional veterinary laboratories, which provide support to farmers. And, they're not only important for farmers running their businesses, because they help them to deal with the common or endemic diseases, as we call them. But they're also really, really important because they're continually watching for a pattern of disease which would suggest that one of these exotic diseases has come in, and they're ready to carry out testing for any one of those diseases if it's suspected to be present. And then finally, another thing maybe that the department is involved in, which mightn't be very prominent to farmers, we do carry out quite a lot of work in demonstrating freedom from some of those diseases which I've mentioned. We have a cull cow program in slaughter plants where we select cows very carefully and we test them for brucellosis, enzootic bovine leukosis, and blue tongue. And on the back of that testing then, our vets can then sign these certs to say that the country is free of these diseases. And it's something we can show to trading partners as well when they're thinking about buying our beef and dairy products, that look, yeah, we are free. Well, how do you know you're free? Well, because we've done this testing. So, and then of course there's this business of, when it comes to BSE, which is still a high profile international disease, we test 60,000 or so bovines. We sample them in knackeries and we deliver the testing of those every year, really, really large testing program. And that's okay. We have to do it to comply with EU regulations, but because we do it well and convincingly, we can market our beef and dairy products on the back of that.
I think it's really interesting what you say, Michael, and I suppose if we just bring ourselves back to the health cert that you spoke about, that I suppose we need to maintain the standards with for China, and I was counting with my fingers as you named them out, and there's over 20 diseases listed there, and absolutely, I think when when we milk cows, we're not necessarily ticking off all those things in our head. So it's really interesting to bring it back to exactly what sort of standards that we have to maintain for our export markets. And as you say, there's some of those diseases that we're not necessarily aware of, but the department are, and in the background they're doing a lot of surveillance and checks, to ensure that all those standards are upheld. I guess then another point that you made in relation to the BSE is that, the BSE actually affected the human population. And, you often hear that there may be links between ill health and disease in animals and public health. I suppose, can you give us some more information on that and, how animal disease can cause social and economic upheaval? I know COVID is an interesting example that we're living at the moment, but I suppose, can you give us more detail there?
Yeah, just to go back to the Chinese health cert there for a minute, I just want to stress that those 20 diseases are diseases I've listed out of a section of the health cert, so there may be a few more as well, Emma-Louise, but to get back to your question on the link between animal and human health. So worldwide, it is actually zoonoses, which are diseases of animals which can affect humans. It is these zoonoses which are responsible for the majority of human deaths and the majority of cases of human illness. And they're also responsible, by the way, for the biggest loss in livestock production. But their impact in countries like ours is much, much less. And this is, again, it's down to having diseases of animals under quite good control. And we could always nitpick and say there's certain diseases which we aren't controlling as well as we could. But in general, compared to other countries, we have a good handle on things. Be it brucellosis, BVD, TB, some of these other major international pathogens. Either they've been eradicated or they didn't get in here, or else we have quite effective control programs, which mean that they only affect a small proportion of the population, and they're not allowed to run their course through it. But that's an important point, because when we're talking about work of the department, which maybe people aren't aware of, I suppose that's a thing which an aspect which people might overlook, that because we don't notice ourselves getting sick from brucellosis anymore, we might forget that the work that was done to eradicate it. It was a thing that a lot of farmers and vets contracted brucellosis back in the 80s and 90s, and there's some people still have brucellosis for life out of that. So it's a massive reason why we should pay better attention to animal health. But when it comes to sort of these pandemics, then yes, like they do believe that about 2/3 of new human infections originate in animals. Like COVID is a good example. But if you think about all the other, major human health scares in the last decade, we have to think about things like, SARS, this thing, MERS, Middle East Respiratory Syndrome. We're thinking about things like swine flu, avian flu, and there are, almost all of them that I can think of anyway are, they did originate in animal populations. But I suppose when we're talking about COVID, there's a few things that we would like to draw attention to. So the first thing is, just as you said, COVID has turned our lives upside down. It's caused social and economic upheaval far in excess of its direct health effects. I mean, I haven't contracted COVID, but I'm working from my attic. I'm recording this, from my attic as we speak. And then the other thing, like animal diseases, if a new animal disease were to arise here, God forbid, but if it did, certainly it could cause economic and social upheaval along the same lines, if it got established. Like, even if it doesn't affect humans, which it could, because we don't know what the next new the next new emerging disease in animals is going to look like. But if it affects humans, it certainly has a whole other element to it. But even something along the lines of a foot and mouth or an African swine fever, I mean, if it gets through the population, it could cause serious economic losses, all those things we talked about with foot and mouth. It could cause restrictions. We mightn't be able to move around as much as we'd like. We mightn't be able to operate our farms and our businesses as much as we'd like. So, it behoves us all really to try to get to grips with something like that at an early stage. And, it comes back to what the vet in Britain said about BSE, I suppose. The best way to be on the lookout for a new disease of animals is to get to the bottom of health problems on your farm, whether you believe they're caused by a new disease or whether you think it's just something that's rumbling on, which is common. Like, if you get to the bottom of it, then you will. You're what would you say? You're getting to the bottom of it if it's a mundane or common disease, but you're also doing your bit then to protect the livestock population from something more sinister.
And let's go look at a farm level in terms of, the animal population. And, can you talk us through, from your perspective and what you see in the department, the importance of animal health at a farm level? Like, there is a certain level of disease out there that we do need to get a handle on, and it may not be a situation where there's, a cull of a herd because of a disease, but there may be something happening at a smaller level. What's the impact of that?
Okay, so I suppose we are in a way back to we're getting. It's a very interconnected story, I suppose. But let's just think about low, certain level of diseases on farm, what they do. Well, they, like, animal disease is linked with animal welfare. So, our citizens, our Irish citizens, our EU citizens want to have animals which have lives worth living. It's very, very difficult to have animals with good animal welfare if they're a substantial number of them are affected with disease. Even if you think about lameness in dairy cows, if a substantial number of animals is affected with that disease, because it is a disease, well, it's hard to say the welfare is good. And then, we could think about the sustainability issues. If there's a lot of losses due to deaths or sickness, you're also going to have, if there's disease in the herd, you're also going to have lost production, which could be, that could far eclipse or outweigh the actual direct costs from animals dying. Well, that means that the products that we produce are much less sustainable, and getting our house in order with regard to sustainability is becoming much more important. I mean, if you read the Farmer's Journal any week, the amount of stuff on sustainability and getting that angle right is huge. So these are just some of the issues facing that the department thinks about when we think about low levels of animal disease. Another one is antimicrobial resistance. If there's not good biosecurity and good herd health management, disease prevention measures in place, we become dependent on using quite a lot of antibiotics in some cases. Whereas if you've good herd health, and if you're getting on top of your animal health in the herd, good biosecurity, keeping diseases out, well, then all of a sudden you've better animal welfare, you've more sustainable production, and you don't need to use the antibiotics. And all of these are, as I say, they're issues for our citizens. Like, Irish people don't want our farms to be dependent on antibiotics, have bad animal welfare, and to be unsustainable. European citizens, who at the end of the day, I suppose, are paying our subsidies, don't want that either. But as much as all that, then our consumers don't want it. So if we want to sell our products, we do have to get to grips with these challenges. And better animal health, even for what we think about are the mundane diseases, it also addresses that challenge, because if you could increase the standard of animal health, use more prevention, better herd health management, then you're making progress on many fronts, as well as being in a good position to detect one of these exotic or new diseases, Emma-Louise.
And I think, Michael, you're touching on a lot of points there. And when we reflect on what you're saying, I think there's a great example of a lot of it on farms at the moment. And it's all about the awareness. And, people are, identifying cows that are, potentially they would become lame in a week's time, but people are recognising it and taking action early. And when you talk about antimicrobial resistance, a lot of farmers in the country are now taking action in terms of, they're doing selective dry cow therapy. So where they would have given an antibiotic to every cow at dry off, now they're selecting out, starting small with maybe 10% of the herd and building it up where, a small proportion of the herd, in time is going to get an antibiotic at that stage. So, farmers are becoming more aware, educating themselves and making the right decisions. I guess, we've talked about the health cert and that, but, from a national level, where we're getting this animal health, right, what does it offer us, in terms of from a farmer perspective, processor and onto, exporting our products?
Yeah, so I suppose there's the farmers and processors. Again, there's some diseases of animals they don't think about because they're not here. And I suppose having certain diseases out of this country, such as the foot and mouths, the African swine fevers, apart from all the trade implications of having these absent so that we can certify our products as free. Well, if you compare us to the likes of African countries, Asian countries, where such diseases are rampant, having these diseases out, it allows farmers to plan ahead with peace of mind, that their herds won't be decimated by really, really contagious diseases. It allows processors to plan ahead, knowing that they could be pretty confident of a supply of raw material. There is a good example there, like of when Kerry Group was starting up. It was the early 80s, I think, and all of a sudden, just because of a wet summer and because of an outbreak of brucellosis in Kerry, which had to be dealt with by removing infected animals, their milk supply just got suddenly cut back, and they could have been had their business knocked on the head at a very early stage due to animal disease. So like, the agri-food industry is worth an awful lot to Ireland. It contributes a very substantial amount to employment, and particularly it contributes quite a lot to development of our rural, our more remote areas, such as maybe in the west and border Midlands, where there mightn't be as much in the way of industry going on as there is in the eastern seaboard. So I suppose from that point of view, then having the processors in place and so that they're prepared to expand their operations here, it is a benefit to the economy and society, and it is ultimately a benefit to farmers as well, because the more the processors can expand their operations, the more of an outlet the farmers have for their products. So I suppose from the department's point of view, then at national level, there is a marketing perspective to it, as well as a health certification perspective, because if we're coming along to a third country and trying to get them to buy our beef for our dairy products, well, it puts us on the front foot and strengthens our hand a lot if we can say, well, we're free of a lot of diseases and only have a small number compared to the other way around. So there are effects of this. There are just so many effects of better animal health, and that's really why we think it's worth putting on an Animal Health Awareness Week.
And Michael, finally, to get some practical tips from your perspective as a vet, talking to farmers today, your advice to optimise animal health and welfare on farms, what are your key messages?
Like, in terms of the exotic diseases first, which are the ones we're often concerned about in the department, I would ask farmers to avoid importing livestock unless absolutely necessary from other countries, because that's a way that diseases can come in. And never feed food waste to livestock. You know, if you have a pig at home, avoid feeding waste from the kitchen to that animal. Practice good biosecurity. You know, you think about how diseases could come into your farm and keep them out. Become familiar with the signs of the main exotic and notifiable diseases, and be prepared to report such diseases promptly if you suspect them. I'm thinking of the likes of foot and mouth and blue tongue here. And you will see information on those diseases on the gov.ie website in the agriculture section. Ask the vet to refer carcasses and samples to the department's regional veterinary laboratories if you find that there's disease or mortality that you just can't get to the bottom of and there's no clear diagnosis. If you don't get an answer on the first one, keep sending more samples, and it's highly likely that you will get to the bottom of it. It's good for your bottom line. You're getting to the bottom of a mundane health issue, if that's what it is. You're also helping to protect your herd and other herds from, exotic diseases or more unusual diseases, I suppose. And then in terms of these common or endemic diseases, maintaining a closed herd if you can. If you have to buy in livestock, try to limit the number of herds you buy from, and try to buy them in with a known negative disease status if you can. Avoiding sharing of equipment and vehicles. Try to maintain good fences and protect your herd from wildlife where possible. Proper use of vaccinations. Using anthelmintics, which are wormers, and antimicrobials, mainly antibiotics, sparingly. Engage with your local vet to put in place an effective herd health program for your herd, and engage with organizations such as Teagasc, ICBF and AHI to secure good animal health outcomes. But I suppose to sum it up then, what I would say is just be vigilant for the occurrence of these exotic diseases and be prepared to report them if they do occur. And then, get to the bottom of animal health issues that are ongoing in your farm. It's probably good for your bottom line, so you're doing yourself a favor, but you're also helping to protect the livelihoods of other farmers and of many other citizens as well who maybe work in the agri-food industry. So that's really what I have to say as regards the take-home message on that, Emma-Louise.
Yeah, I think a lot of very practical tips there, Michael. And as you say, it actually it leads to a positive impact on the bottom line for farmers. More profit where you've healthy animals. Looking at Animal Health Awareness Week, Michael, what other activities can we expect to see this week?
So as we're having several other podcasts as well as this one on the Teagasc platform. So we are having a sheep podcast, a pig podcast, and a beef podcast as well, and they're all being released this week. We're having webinars in the evening from the 23rd to the 26th of November. The one on Monday is to do with the links between animal and human health, and the one on Tuesday is to do with sheep diseases. The one on Wednesday is to do with pig health and biosecurity, and the one on Thursday then is to do with cattle health. And we do have a variety of our Minister Charlie McConalogue is launching the Animal Health Awareness Week on the Monday, and we do have Minister Hackett launching the sheep webinar on the Tuesday, and Minister Hayden launching the cattle webinar on the Thursday. And then we do also we're sending out posters to locations which are being visited, which are often visited by farmers. We have a social media campaign there, so please like and share our tweets. And we are getting into certain relevant third level colleges like veterinary nursing courses, veterinary medicine course in UCD, agricultural college courses. Some of them run by Teagasc, and I think some of them are sort of, have links with Teagasc as well. And then there's also some ag science courses in the Institutes of Technology that are getting some of these third level presentations as well. That's the majority of it. But if you visit gov.ie and search for Animal Health Awareness Week in the search box, you'll get all the information there. And I'd encourage everyone, especially farmers and vets who may be listening, to to engage in our webinars and to to take on board the messages in their daily work.
And I think at that point we'll wrap it up, Michael. This has been a really, really interesting conversation listening to you today. I think it's really insightful to see the crucial role that the Department of Agriculture are playing in the background. A lot of us would be unaware of that. A huge amount of surveillance and early detection of diseases, which is so important in maintaining our ability to market our product and to get a good price for our milk or meat, whatever it may be for particular farmers. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you very much, Emma-Louise, and thanks for helping to spread the word.
That's it for this week's episode of the Dairy Edge podcast, and my thanks to vet Michael Horan for joining me on this week's show. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe to the podcast. You can listen on Apple and Google Podcasts as well as Spotify, and for more information go to the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie. I'm Emma-Louise Coffey, and join me next time for your Dairy Edge.